Shabbat, Parshat, Bo over here, got the Chumash out, and nothing like learning Torah wisdom just for the Shabbat table, respectively. Just a cute idea before I want to set up a brilliant Torah I heard, was that we know that the name Va'era, which is last week's Parsha, features 7 other plagues, and this week's Parsha, Parshat Bo, features 3. The word Va'era is a Vav and an Aleph. That's the 2 first of the 4 letters of the Parsha, which has gematria of 7. And the word Bo is a Bet and an Aleph, which has gematria of 3, respectively, 2 plus 1. So it'd be a very cute idea with short remez within regards to that amount of plagues in each Parsha, respectively. But a phenomenal Netziv is going to come out in this week's Parsha in Shemot, in chapter 6, verse number 6. So this, once again, brilliant ideas Rabbi Daniel Fine from the United Kingdom always has, and I recommend everyone to purchase his different Parshiot, Shabbat, Dvar Torah books in of itself. Now, the Netziv was going to ask in this pasuk the question: how could a nation which had been in slavery for close to 200 years, having been firmly enveloped in a slave mentality, receive the Torah a mere 50 days after having left slavery behind? It's fathomable. It's it's incomprehensible. How could they have, let's say, taken away that slave mentality and rise to such great spiritual levels in such a small amount of time? Now, imagine this scenario here. Nowadays, a group of people was freed from slavery after 139 years. Obviously, we, unfortunately, since October 7th, we saw the horrors of what actually happened on that time period. And unfortunately, we see the horrors that, unfortunately, the hostages actually went through there. That was 2 years. Obviously, this was probably even a much more worse scenario than the people in Egypt was. So you can't really compare, God forbid, the two. And on the first things we should say is we cry out for them and thank God they are all free at the moment. But going back to it over here, imagine nowadays a group of people are freed from slavery for 190 years. They would obviously need a lot of different counseling, so many different mental health assistances over here because of the trauma that actually takes place so that they can come back into regular society. Needless to say that they would hardly, let's say, be fit to become proper individuals that will be able to keep all the Torah, receive the Torah within 50 days. It's going to be very, very challenging. Now, the Netziv is going to give an answer to this and says that it was not a mere 50-day process. It was much more than that. He does this by redefining the 4 expressions of redemptions, whereby Hashem assured Moshe Rabbeinu that the people would be taken out of Egypt. He writes that the 4 expressions of redemption were 4 different stages of the redemption. The first was a stage was called V'hotzeti over here. I will take you out of the burden of Egypt. This was when Pharaoh relaxed the harshness of the slavery and repealed the edict under which the children of Israel had to make their own bricks. The extra burden over there was removed. This stage of redemption occurred at the end of the plague of Aaron. This is naturally the plague of the animal invasion. The next step of redemption was V'hitzalti. I will save you from your work over here. This was when Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, dropped all slavery and started respecting the children of Israel to some specific degree. The work over there had ceased. This occurred after a plague of hail. Now next comes, I will redeem you with an outstretched arm, with an outstretched hand to be precise, which refers to are no longer being under Pharaoh's dominion. This stage was fulfilled after the plague of the firstborns. Though all slavery had ended after the hail, the Jewish people were still, technically at that stage in time, subjects to the king of Egypt, Pharaoh, under his dominion. The plague of the firstborns meant that we were no longer under Egyptian rule whatsoever. Pharaoh wanted us out at that window of time. And now comes the 4th expression of redemption, was Vela Kachti. I will take you for me as a nation, which once again the Netziv reveals is a reference to the giving of the Torah, our eternal covenant with God. And now apart over here from the beauty of the Netziv's explanation and the way it fits the words of the Psukim impeccably, it also answers the Netziv's original question here. For if one does let's say the mathematics over here, it turns out that from the first stage of redemption to Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah, there was at least 8 months. And from the first plague until Matan Torah, the giving of Torah, there was well over a year. So it was not just let's say this mere amount of 50 days for the Bnei Yisrael to turn themselves from slaves to supermen. Obviously, we didn't have all the technology like we've got nowadays, but rather a solid period of 8 to 14 months to gear themselves up and raise themselves up to the mental and spiritual heights that was needed. Indeed, this explanation of the Netziv also reveals why there are 4 cups on the Leil HaSeder, on the Passover night. And there's not one cup we have over here. We know that there's 4. You could argue we leave a cup for Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet. There's only one exodus over here, one going out of Egypt. The answer is that since each expression of redemption was a different stage in the redemption, and not merely 4 assurances that the same event would take place, each stage is worthy celebrating, receiving, and treasuring in and of itself. Just the importance within regards to that. And how awesome is the Shabbat in of itself, the Torah portion every single week, as we are now in Parshat Bo. And these Parshiot, friends, there's actually 2 significances within regards to Shemot all the way to Beshalach, and Shemot all the way to Mishpatim over here. What are these, let's say, significances, friends, over here, which we very much have to point out? We know, friends, that the Torah portion of Beshalach, Shemot to Beshalach, comprises of literally the Passover liturgy over here, which we say on Leil HaSeder. The whole Haggadah, let's say, fabric itself is featured in these parshiot from between there. So naturally, where we say over the whole Passover liturgy, we are actually relating virtually most of the story which actually occurred with slavery, which we learn about very much in Parshat Shemot all the way till Parshat Beshalach. Obviously, we see the Kriyat Yamsov, all the miracles that actually occurred at sea for Am Yisrael that is actually recounted over. And we actually say every single day in the Az Yashir Moshe Tfilah, every single morning in Shacharit, which obviously comes from Parshat Bo in of itself. But also, friends, this happens to be a significant time period because from Shemot till Mishpatim, which you could equate to some specific a realm in of itself, is the days of Shovavim over here. Shemot, Va'era, Bo, Beshalach, Yitro, Mishpatim. That's an acronym for those parshiot, each of those letters itself. And this is also a time. Obviously, the time period of Shemot till Beshalach is a time of, let's say, over here, physical, obviously, all the slavery Am Yisrael went through and all the trials and tribulations and the pains that they went through at that window of time, they actually suffered tremendously. That was from a physical standpoint, how horrific the circumstances actually came on that window of time. But within regards to Shovavim, it's different from a specific angle, but at the same time, it's very, very similar. Because a lot of the issues with Shovavim is a time period from Shemot to Mishpatim where we work on ourselves within regards to, what we think about our thoughts, our purity, our levels, let's just say, thinking our own well-being inner side. What are our thoughts? What's coming out of our mind? What's our mental health like, you could say, in certain cases? What are our desires? It's a time period to control our desires at the same time, which is totally different to what very much Shemot till Beshalach encompasses in of itself, where it's all the physical, how we can be ready to get physically also, obviously spiritually also, but we had to come back from that back-breaking labor, all the pain, all the injuries that actually took place in the 210 years inside Egypt, and then to rectify and clarify ourselves to get to a zenith physical level to get it, and also spiritual level. But all of this actually stimulates and emanates also from the thoughts in our brain. Every single thing that we think. And how powerful it is this time. Take opportunity on these weeks to work on ourselves. If we feel we are struggling with something specific, work on it. If we feel that maybe we're lacking on it, if we feel we're excelling in something, pat ourselves on the back and keep up the great work and even excel even further. There's many stories, many people will listen to extra Torah class in this point of time. People will go to the mikveh more, to the ritual bath on these specific days in of itself, especially in these weeks. But it's a time also, it's a present to actually work on ourselves. And I'm actually recording this at the time period of the Hilula of the Baba Sali, happened to speak here on the 4th of Shvat. He was a rabbi that mastered everything he saw saw. He saw everything was all the nisim, the miracles that actually he was able to possess was because of what he saw, definitely what he heard also. And I think there was one great rabbi one time asked him, all these miracles you're able to do and everything else, all these greatnesses. What's the trick? If it's about merit of the forefathers, I'm also a great rabbi. My great grandparents were also great rabbis. I know you've got that also. So what is it that? How are you able to do it? So he says every single thing. He watches what he sees in every single aspect. And stuff like that. And obviously what we see is going to obviously trigger what we might think or might do, and so on and so forth. And that's the power of these days in itself. We can work on ourselves in a brilliant way. And as the way we got our windows of the soul here as we see in the Parshat of Shemot till Bashalach, we had to go through all that backbreaking labor in Egypt and suffer, unfortunately, so much through the cruel king of Egypt, Pharaoh, and be tormented so much. But at the end, what did we get? At the end, what was our main present? The Torah over here. But these weeks here of Shemot, all the way till Mishpatim, what do we get, friends, over here? The biggest presence in the world, spiritually, and also that will affect us physically in all different aspects. So wishing all a Shabbat Shalom Varach. Maybe this be a spiritual time period for all of us, greatness. And one other thing, when we're talking about thoughts, people are slaves to many of the things that they are thinking about. All their desires, I need this, that. They're like a slave also, spiritually, maybe not in the physical sense. So that's why these time periods are presents for Hashem. We get the present, especially during Pesach, to recount all over this, but we also get the present of Shovavim to work on ourselves in a spiritual manner. So wishing all a Shabbat Shalom, a fantastic week. And friends, thanks for watching and enjoy. Thank you.